So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Sporting Fan Podcast. Today we have a big name on the podcast. We have Scott Fava, former Wallaby and current member of the Wallaroos coaching staff. How's it going?
Good, Stephen. Good to be on the Sporting Fan podcast.
It's great to have you on. So, you started rugby down in Kiama. I was a little bit surprised. That's more a rugby league area. How did you get involved with the rugby down there?
Look, I started playing rugby when I was around 11. I was playing in Sydney, so I fluctuated from league to union from the age of 5, just with mates and mucking around in the two different codes in that district. And then my family moved down to Kiama when I was about 15. So my first year in Kiama area was difficult because I went down to Kiama Rugby Club and I was ready to sign up, and they only had a 19s. And at that stage, mate, I hadn't gone through puberty, and I was tiny, like I was a halfback. And I looked up at the guys that were, mate, 6'5", playing under 19s. I was going, nah. I'm looking at something else, maybe. So I went down to Jerringah and played league for a year with a good group of guys, and Sean Timmins was in our team. I ended up being his understudy. So it was quite funny. Sean Timmins would go away for Harold Matts or whatever it was, Jersey Flag, and then I'll get off the bench and come in as a 5'8" and run the team. And then when he came back, I was back on the bench. So that was me for the first year, and then I really wanted to get back to rugby. So I was in year 12 and I just got together as many guys as I could. And we started up the first Kiama under 17s team, first junior team for the club. And what started out as a sevens team, when we went to a couple of sevens tournaments, a few of the other lads just kept on asking mates. And then by the time the season started, we got enough for a 15s side. So we put ourselves into the competition. There was only 4 teams in the under 17s in the Illawarra area. So yeah, we were guaranteed semi-finals, which is pretty cool. Our first year. But it was good just to get back to rugby, and I always sort of the coaches that helped out at the time. We had guys like Rigo, Corco, and Sean Barrett, and I think Sean's still involved with Illawarra Rugby. Both of them are. Corco and Rigo still with Kiama Rugby, but Sean with Illawarra. But mate, they put their hand up and said, "Yep, we'll coach this group," and really put it together and made sure those guys stayed. I think those kind of club guys enabled Kiama Junior Rugby to start. And sort of said, look, we can do this. We just get some good guys around that sort of junior ranks, and yeah, we can sort of go against rugby league and start to build a junior nursery. And so it's kind of where it happened. So sometimes I sit there and I'm sort of proud of that legacy that was kind of started with just trying to get mates together, and my one of playing rugby union down in Kiama.
So you said you started as a 5'8". Like you obviously went on and played in the back row. When did you move from being a half 5'8" into playing in the back row? When, like, was that a little bit older when you started playing for Eastwood, or was that when the juniors?
In the juniors, that year, that Kiama 17s year, I started as halfback. And then through the year, the coaches just saw my skill. And look, I've played back row before, but not probably just for half seasons here and there when people got injured. Look, when I first played rugby, I was a fullback. I moved to wing, then to outside centre, then to inside centre, then to fly half, and then to halfback. So that my regression to the forwards was systematic.
Forward, yeah.
From under 11s all the way to 17s. It was basically I'm moving in, right? So, but yeah, they saw my skill at the ruck and just my determination, I guess. And I love the collision. And I guess from that viewpoint, they halfway through that 17s year, they moved me to open side. and then it just took off from there, I guess.
Were you a bit of a child prodigy, or was it like you grew late and when you were 16, 17, 18, that's when you really developed?
Look, I was thereabouts. I always sort of say this. I was thereabouts to probably top three in every side that I was in. So I did have the skill early. Like I guess when you're playing under sevens and you get 100 points in the year because it's 3-point tries, I think you've got some skill and you
Yeah.
understand the game somewhat, right? So I was always sort of ahead of the game and understood it and just loved it. So, but from a development point of view, I think some of the positions that I played enabled me to sort of take that to a higher level when I did start to play professionally. To understand the game from a fullback point of view, from the outside centres point of view, from a fly-half's point of view, and to direct traffic. I think held me in good stead for when I just sort of clamped down and went, look, I'm a back rower and I'm going forward in this position. So look, but in saying that, like my high school team, I didn't even make the first 15. I was on the bench just because I was like small and I don't know, selection wise and whatever else. But, it was, once again, I think it was development at that stage, around about that 17, 18-year-old age group. I had under 18s. I tried out for Illawarra, but I got knocked back, saying that I was too fat and too slow to play back row. So, so I was like, you cop your fair share of knocks in terms of that roller coaster ride. But so I guess to answer your question, yeah, look, I was pretty much up there with most of my sides leading up to when I guess I got to about 16, 17s, 18s. And then I had to work hard. And that's where that mindset had to flip, and where I had to look at it and go, look, natural talent got me to this stage where I love the game. I've done a lot so far, but this is the time where if I want to go forward, I need to work and work harder than anyone else. So after that under 18s feedback, I went home and sort of laid out a program and started working with the guys in the surf club, Kaima Surf Club, in the gym there, and started doing weights. Started running around Kaima Showground and doing 3K time trials and just worked my butt off. Subsequently, the next year, under 19s, I went from not making Illawarra the year before to going all the way to New South Wales. Which was amazing. So for me, just tipped off. I went Illawarra, Southern Zone. You got to go and play trials down at Yass at 8:00 in the morning when it's -4 degrees. Then got picked for New South Wales Country, and then played the New South Wales Country versus City team, and then it got picked for New South Wales A under 19s. And yeah, it was a massive experience, massive drive. And I guess like the other thing that was a driver for me was I knew New South Wales Country were going to Fiji for under 19. So I was like, yep, I've got to be on that trip.
That would have been a sick trip. That would have been so much fun.
Was awesome. It was awesome. You make lifelong friends from trips like that, which is gold. So so a couple of motivating factors put me sort of back in the limelight. And it was funny because in the New South Wales team that got selected was one of my mates from my previous team in Greystanes. He made it as a number 8. So it kind of like I went the back way in terms of pathway. He went, through the Sydney system, and we still got to the same point. So yeah, it's kind of funny how it all works out.
Yeah. So is that when you knew that you could potentially make it when you made the New South Wales A team? Is that when you thought you could make a career out of rugby, or was like, oh, get something else behind me, and then if rugby works out, it works out?
Yeah, look, I always had that burning ambition to play for Australia, whether it was league or union. I wanted to be wearing those colours, there's no doubt. And, it was very aspirational. But, yeah, you've got to work things out. So I didn't go to the CHS trials in high school because my trial HSC was on, and I chose education first. I wanted to have something behind me. my first 2 years at uni, when I was doing electrical engineering course. I was doing really well. I think the only thing that got me was computers. I sucked at programming. I just wasn't any good, but everything else was great, like maths, physics. I was all on top of it. And I knew that I had to have something that I'd had to fall back on. But during those couple of years at uni, under 19s, making that New Wales team. The next year, like Sydney teams came knocking again and said, look, come and play Colts with us. And I stayed in Kiama for another year because the Australian under-21s coach ended up coming to coach Kiama. So it was a good decision for me to stay in Kiama. And I think it paid dividends, I guess, in terms of getting me to Australian 21s the following year. So, and that helped. A Kiama boy sometimes needs that help to get that piggyback when you got a lot of GPS boys and that kind of stuff that get flagged quite early and they're on the way to that success through that pathway. So, I made that decision and it worked out. Look, I had to play. There's no doubt about it. They wouldn't have picked me if I wasn't up to the standard. But it definitely helped for those 50-50 decisions. And so once I made Australian 21s, then I kind of was okay. I've got to move to Sydney. I've got to get a club and all that stuff. So yeah, so it really then put my sort of radar into that this could be a professional career. Because 96 Super Rugby came in, and this is 97. So this is Australian under 21s 1997, and that's what we're looking at is going, wow, guys can actually do this full time. This is amazing. So I think I was on that cusp of that, and that really sparked me to work hard and go forward.
Well, that actually leads me into my next question. So you saying you needed to move to Sydney and start playing grade. Like you from the Kiama way, what was it that brought you to Eastwood rather than someone like Southern Districts, which is would be close to your area?
So I did play a year Southern Districts in 97. So it got to the point like I was in the train on squad for the 21s and I was on the radar, and they basically said, look, you have to go to Sydney. So I was still living in Kiama and I was driving up to Southern Districts for that first year in 97. And then from there, I decided, look, we had a decent year. We had a lot of young guys, really good talent. Mark Stabina, Manny Edmonds, Terry Gilson was in the 21s with me. So we had some really. Steve Talbot was captain of the Waratahs at the time. So there was a fair few good guys around, but I just felt like the culture wasn't right. It just didn't feel like a club that I wanted to be at. So I had a really good year. And look, Southern Districts have changed that around now, but I think it was just that early years. And so when Eastwood came knocking and they had made the final the year before in 97. Yeah, so 97 they made the final. They played Manly and they lost. They were losing Adam Leach, who was going overseas. And John McKee gave me a tap on the shoulder and said, look, we want you to be our 7. And for me, it just felt like, it's kind of like the club I want to be at. And I think it was the best choice, 100%.
Were you straight into first grade as soon as you went to Eastwood, or?
Yes, yeah. Because I was playing first grade 7 for Southern Districts, and so for me it was a straight transition across, and so I was kind of like their marquee signing for number 7.
How do you find shoot? Because I'm involved with the Subbies Club. I'm involved with Waverley Rugby, and with Waverley Rugby and a lot of the Subbies clubs, there's that real big culture around the club. There's great culture, and I find that I also went a few years ago. I went down to a couple of games down at East, and absolutely loved it there. There's always like we saw NRL players down there. Like there was several Roosters like Luke Keary, James Tedesco were down there watching as well. Um, did you have that? Did you have that at Eastwood as well in Southern Districts? Like, did you have that similar kind of culture where it's like the whole community, everyone gets around the club, everyone really enjoys it. Even like people that don't enjoy rugby, for example, go to a lot of these events because like all their mates are going down. Do you have that same similar kind of thing?
Look, Southern Districts once again was hard. I wasn't from the area. I wasn't living in the area, so I was coming up and down from Kiama. So I was doing the trek, and so I guess in one sense it made it hard for me to sort of integrate properly. And there was a couple of us boys that were kind of like that. But I think at that time in '97, that Southern District still had that identity. In which they were Port Hackney and St George combining. And so we always sort of, like us outsiders, sort of made a joke of it, but it wasn't fun in terms of when you look back on it in terms of culture, was that when we walked into the club and we're going to have a drink, it's like, do we go to St George guys or do we go to Port Hackney guys? Because the room was split in the clubhouse, right? So it kind of made it, that's what I was talking about in terms of culture, which it fixed now. And I think it's a really good culture down there. I was down there yesterday for the New South Wales on Saturday, sorry, the New South Wales A versus Southern Districts and the Brumbies were playing down there, but also the New South Wales women playing the Brumbies women as well. But when you go in the clubhouse, everyone, like, it's a really good feel about it now, and there's a really good lads that come from the area, made their way from their village clubs like Burraneer and Oatley and Menai and Rockdale, and have really come into this club and made it their own. So that makes the club special. But when I moved to Eastwood, it was there already, and it was just a fun environment. Like, we had a lot of great guys that made it their way through Colts, and were club players through and through. Wouldn't wear any other colours in Eastwood, and you just felt that, and you felt that they brought guys like me in and just made me one of the lads. So it makes a difference when a club has a very good culture, and that's it doesn't come from top down. It comes from the players that are there and that want to be part of it. And when you got fourth graders sitting around and staying on the hill, ready to watch first grade, and you're hearing them yelling at you and having a laugh and that kind of stuff, it creates that environment 100%.
Yeah, we have the similar kind of thing at Waverley Rugby, at Waverley Oval, where you have that on a ladies' day or a back to Waverley day with a lot of the old boys and that, and it just goes absolutely kind of crazy. We have that similar kind of thing. Then you move on to playing. You move up. You play Super Rugby for you. I believe you started at the Reds in '99.
Yep.
So Reds were very successful. You won the minor premiership in '99. Made the finals again in '01. What couple of questions here. So the first one is, how do you get how does that process go? Did someone at Eastwood, Queensland Reds, contact someone at Eastwood? Did they contact you direct? How does that process go from going to Shoot Shield to Super Rugby?
Look, a couple things that happened during my '99 season. So I go to Eastwood '98. We have an all right season. We don't make semi-finals, which was a bit disappointing considering where they came the year before. We come sixth. We lost to Randwick in the last game, and that could have tipped us into the finals. '99 though, we got a couple of red hot guys out of I think Timmy Donnelly and Paul Deneen and Al McDonald. So we really shored up our back line. I think we had a really good forward pack. But these young guys came into our team, and things just went on the up and up. But fast forward to the start of the year, because I'm from New South Wales country, country were getting me back for different things that were happening that they were getting opportunities with. So in the 97 season, I came back and played Ireland. In the 98 season, I think I came back and played Scotland for New South Wales country. So these internationals, they grabbed a couple of country guys to come back in. In 99, New South Wales country ended up getting the trial against Queensland Reds before the Super Rugby season. So once again, they called me in. It's a great opportunity. And they also called in Chris Malone from Sydney Uni to come in as well. And that game, I guess, put me on the radar with John Connolly because I was man of the match against pretty strong Reds team at the time. And I know like only half of them, like the main guys like Kev and David Wilson and Mark Connors and Matty Cobain, I guess from a back row point of view, they only played half a game, but it's still, I guess, the performance I put in put me on the radar, and that's all it takes. You know, it gave John Connolly an opportunity to say, you know what, this could be our next seven coming through, because David Wilson was looking at retiring in the near future. So with that, I guess in the 99 season, I end up going through. We won a grand final for Eastwood. I think I got the Sydney Morning Herald Player of the Year. I think I came third in the King Catch Bowl Player of the Year, or somewhere along that. I can't remember. Maybe top five thereabouts. And because of that cracking year in Eastwood, I think just put it all together. So Super Rugby clubs were finally knocking on my door. And so then I had an opportunity to go to the Brumbies with Eddie, and also had an opportunity to go to the Reds with John and the group. And I just felt, for me, learning off someone like David Wilson was the right move. And I knew he was. They said, look, he's got a year that you got to use him and play underneath him, and then he's out of there 2001, and then you'll be able to get the position there. And it's just that pathway sort of lent me towards, let's pack up, let's go to the Reds. So I made that choice. I think I made my debut in '99 for the Reds. It was in that Ricoh Cup at the end of the season, between that and the World Cup. And mate, my first game was playing with Johnny Eales as captain. Was amazing.
That would have been pretty cool, wouldn't it? Be like one of the greatest forwards ever for the Wallabies.
That's right. You know, and it was just a great experience, and we beat Waratahs up there, and it was just a great team. You know, I can name all of them, but everybody knows like what the Reds were like in that day and age, and the amount of Wallabies that went on and won that World Cup that year. So, you know, to be sort of a little bit of that tint of that World Cup, you know, playing with those players really rubbed off on me. And, you know, I really enjoyed that experience up at the Reds.
And then you go to the Brumbies in 2002. So they had just come up being probably the greatest Super Rugby team ever in the Crusaders the year before in 2001. The first Australian team to win it, the Super Rugby title. So you go there, play 3 years there, and you just seem to go to another level. You win 3 King Catch Bowl medals playing for Eastwood in a row, which is pretty incredible for a forward. Well, anyone to do it, but especially a forward. You win the championship in 2004. The Brumbies are just running rapid. First of all, what made you go from the Reds to the Brumbies? And the other thing is, what made the Brumbies culture so good that they can take, obviously, someone like you that's a quality player and take your game from an extremely good player to a great player?
Yeah, look, it was a good transition. I don't want to say anything sort of bad about why I left the Reds, but I just didn't get offered a contract. So I was in this sort of limbo land. Do I go overseas? You know, I've only had 2 years. I haven't really done anything. I played 5 games, all of one starting, and the rest off the bench. So, that burning desire to make the Wallabies was 100% there. I didn't want to leave. I had a really good year for Queensland Rugby Shit Shield, or whatever it's called, Hospital Cup. So, and I guess a couple of those games, once again, were against some quality opposition, one being Canberra, because Canberra was in our comp at that stage. And, had a red hot Canberra side that I think I had a really good game. Eddie was watching once again. It was just timing right. And he basically got on the phone to look, we need a number 8. Oh, sorry. Let's go back. I had to do a positional change as well. And that's sort of what prompted me moving from the Reds to the Brumbies, sort of molded in really well. So when I got to the Reds, I had to choose my club, and I ended up choosing Brothers because I was living with Nathan Spooner and Sam Cornley, and they were both Brothers boys, and they're both Eastwood boys. So living with those lads, I was going, man, I'm not going to go to another club. I'm just going to go to your club, right? So going to Brothers and not playing much in terms of Super Rugby, I was playing a lot of club rugby. And at number 7 for Brothers was David Croft. And and he was killing as a number 7. And I was coming back from whenever I was available for Reds as a number 7. And the boys said, look, we can't drop Crofty. Scotty, do you mind going to number 8? I said, yeah, sweet. I'm happy to go to 8. That'd be good. So with me having Crofty there, sparked me to make this transition to number 8 and start to learn the skills as an 8. Controlling back of the scrum, my running lines, leading the team forward in terms of run meters, collision, all that kind of stuff. So I had to sort of change my headspace from being this roving 7 that just trying to get into everything, as well as having a running game, be really influential at the ruck, get my jackals, be a pest, and make sure I'm supporting my team to, mate, we're giving you the ball. You're number 1 ball runner. Let's go get the meters. It was a big transition, but one I really enjoyed. And the coaches were great up there, and Paul Healy, he's still running around, coaching overseas in the US, and Desi Kassane. They helped me out and got me going in terms of that transition. And yeah, so as I said, that game that I played number 8 against the Canberra Vikings was one that set me up in that position. So when Eddie did make the call and we sat down, we had a chat, I said, mate, are you signing me as a 7 or 8? He says, as an 8, mate. If you keep playing the way you're playing as an 8, we need you at the Brumbies as a number 8. And I was like, righto, sweet. And so from there, yeah, he signed me at the Brums as an 8. And then I went into the first camp. Obviously, from there, Eddie Jones moved across to the Wallabies. And that first year that we had, after he won the championship, was David Nisifora comes in 2002. And I had a really good relationship with him. I chatted to him. He was coaching West in Queensland at the time, but he also had me for Australian universities. And we went across to New Zealand together for Aussie unis versus New Zealand unis, which was, mate, an experience in itself. That was the first Eden Park blackout game. And that was nuts. Willa Curtin Razor, and it was just a ferocious environment. And it was it was an environment that I wanted to be part of, like to play in front of at the time. But yeah, so I moved down to Brumbies as a number 8, and then had to work and ply my trade as a number 8 in professional rugby.
Did that also help? Because I think George Smith would have been also coming through around then, wasn't he? Playing 7 at the Brumbies.
Yeah, so he was he off the bench 2001 because Brett Robinson was there, and he scored the try. He scored the winning try, didn't he, Georgie? I think in that 2001 final. So yeah. I don't know whether he did it as a starter or as a finisher, but regardless, he was on the radar anyway. So, but that was a big thing. Like, it seemed like at the time, me being 6'3", number 7, I was too big for 7. And because these guys like Crofty was going really well, Phil Wall, George Smith, that were all 5 sort of 10, 11, whatever, and really low to the ground and compact. And rightly so. Those guys dominated the scene for the next 10 years, right? So it was a very fortuitous change, and one that enabled me to sort of be in and around those guys and not competing with them. And look, there's no doubt, like I was still competing against some really good players when you look at it from a number 8 point of view. You got Toto Kefu and David Lyons sitting there in the Reds and the Waratahs. That's it still made it hard. So there was no easy road, but I think from a body perception point of view, it made it better that I was able to put some weight on and not be the 99 kilo number 7 running around at 6'3", but become the 106, 108 kilo number 8 running around. So that made it a lot easier in terms of that transition. Yeah, for sure.
And how was it winning the 04 championship?
Oh, mate, it was an experience that we always talk about, being a part of a team that came together in really circumstances where it was out of most my control, whereby Nisifora gets sacked at the start of the year, and basically the team was run by the players. We had great support from Laurie Fisher and Nick Scrivener as our assistants, and Ant Eddie was there as well from a backs point of view. But it really was, you could tell that the senior players like Bernie and Steve Larkham and George Gregan stepped up. Forward pack was massive. Like, who didn't step up in terms of Owen Finnegan, Dave Giffen, Jeremy Paul, Bill Young, like keep naming the guys, everyone, Justin Harrison, Georgie Smith, so yeah. So for us guys that weren't in the Wallabies at the time, I guess we knew we were in good hands because these guys had a lot of experience and a lot of great rugby knowledge in their top 6 inches. So we just followed their lead, but also from a viewpoint, when you talk about culture, we brought it in really tight. And as a player group, it was very insular because there was a lot of shit being thrown at the group in terms of how Nisifora got sacked and what's he doing within the group and all that kind of stuff. So media was paying a lot of attention to how we're going. But the senior leaders just absorbed all that and made sure that we just played the game we wanted to play. And it showed. Like, the brand of footy that we played was nuts. So, you got big Radiki Samo, like flicking balls all over the place, just running over people. Mark Gerard on the wing, just scoring everything that was given to him. Sterling Mortlock taking us up the middle and not stopping. To just. And who do we have at the bat there? Joe Roth to finish it off. So, mate, amazing team. Amazing team, amazing victory.
It was a bit of a revolutionary team as well, because like Australia didn't really have that big ranging outside center until really Sterling. Like they did have a few big centers before that, but they didn't really have that big athletic. Like, if they were big, they were just big. They weren't like athletic like Mortlock as well. Like you guys kind of changed the game for Australian rugby as well.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Like, Sterling made his way from winger when he was playing straight out of we played Australian 21s together. And I think that's where he got selected straight out of Australian 21s and went on the spring tour to wherever it may be. I can't remember back then, but that was back in 97. So he got his start there, and then he had been playing trade down at the Brumbies, picked up by the Brumbies in 98. So he had been going for a couple of years and, started out as wing, but he was always a strong centre. And he always had that ability to break the line or at least bend the line enough from first phase to give the team momentum. But if not that, he would break the line and just create great opportunities from an attacking point of view. So he always had that in him. And going into a professional environment, he was running around at hundreds probably as a quick outside centre. And yeah, exactly. That's where it's at. Like if you've got that combination of speed as well as strength, and to be able to dominate collision, it makes it very hard for the opposition to stop you. So yeah, he had it all, triple threat.
Yeah, definitely. And then then you get selected for Australia in '05. Did you well, first of all, did you know that you're on the radar, and how was it like that when you finally did play for Australia? You saying that was a goal. What was it like to finally put on the gold jersey and play five games for Australia?
Look, it was a massive experience for me, for a number of factors. One, I guess being part of that 2004 Wallabies team, I was probably only one of a couple that wasn't a Wallaby at the time. So, being part of that team and doing the work just the same as the rest of them, and seeing that those opportunities weren't given to me, as they did for the other guys, was hard. There's no doubt about it. I probably didn't put myself in the best. Well, look, I got selected for the Spring Tour 2004, but in playing for Eastwood in the grand final, I hurt myself in the semis and got an injection to play in the final, in my foot. End up tearing my ligament in my foot 50%, from what was a 10% tear, just to play in the grand final. But at the end of the day, I would do the same today,
Yeah,
if I had that
of course.
opportunity, because you just don't miss a grand final. And look, even though we lost to Randwick, which was hard, I still went out there and did the best I could. Run around. I couldn't even feel my heel. Like I couldn't feel my heel on the ground. I could just feel my toes. So I was trying to run on my left foot on my toes the whole day, because that's what I could feel as much as possible. Like it was a fair tear, and it was a weird feeling to be out there running like that. But yeah, so when it came down to it, the dust settles. I was dying. I couldn't play I couldn't make the Spring Tour, and I got ruled out, which was a shame. And that would have been my first opportunity to be a Wallaby. So I made sure I got the injury right, and I took that opportunity to train my butt off during that 2005 off season. And look, it definitely worked. I think 2005 was my best season in Super Rugby. I think I came third in the Australian Super Rugby Championship Player of the Year award. I think Georgia came first, but it was more that I got the attention to detail right for my position, and I think when you look at it, I only started playing as a professional number 8 from 2002. So it did take me that 3 years to get it right, to understand my role and how to bring the team forward, and not be so, because I still had that number 7 mentality too. Like if you watch me in the 2004 grand final, I'm so critical of myself because I just followed the ball too much, and I didn't give us an opportunity. And guys stood up. There's no doubt about it. Like as I said, you had guys in your team like Radicki and Georgie Smith who were making meters anyway. So, but from an individual point of view, I was so critical of how I just kept on following the ball, and I was going ruck to ruck rather than being in positions to take the team forward. So during that 2005 off season, I just made sure I got that right, and made sure that I became more of a leader, getting the team going forward. And subsequently, my running game showed that I could do that, and that's why, from a 2005 point of view, I think I had the best season because I got that all right. So, I got selected for the Wallabies out of that Super Rugby season, and then I spent the next 14 games as 23rd man. And it made it difficult. Like you're sitting there, the team's not winning, and I'm sitting there as 23rd man. So if you don't know what happens as a 23rd man, I think now it's 24th man because we've got 23 in the squad. But back in 2005, there was only one front rower on the bench, so we had 22 that were able to be in the squad, and the 23rd warmed up with the team, but was only there if something happened in the warm up. And in spending that amount of time and not being a Wallaby, it was so difficult because like you would then, after the warm up, everything was fine. Team goes out and sings the national anthem, and you're standing back singing the national anthem with the staff, looking at the team and looking at the guys on the field, going, "Mate, I just want to be out there. I just want to be out there." And it was just this desire. Like I'm one step away. Like it's 20 meters from me to them. Like when is this going to happen? You know, I'm working hard, and I just had to wait for that opportunity. And so yeah, but you sometimes your head goes on you. You know, like is this my role? Am I just going to be sitting here as a Wallaby 23rd man and that's it? So I just had to continue to work hard and train, and I think I got my conditioning to a point where I was up there as one of the fittest in the team, which is I guess one of those opportunities, because I wasn't playing games week in, week out during that period of time. I was able to put more on my S&C, and so subsequently when we went to the spring tour, the back row was deemed not fit enough, I guess, when we lost to French in Montpellier. I think we lost to the French in Montpellier, and this was under Eddie, and I got my opportunity to make my debut at Twickenham off the bench.
Oh, what a place to be, right?
Rugby. Home of rugby, nuts. You know, like to sit there and go, if during this 23rd man all the way through is giving you that opportunity to make your debut at Twickenham, well, so be it. And it was an awesome experience. Even when they only had, like when they had the southern stand, I think it was missing, so that was a bit eerie. And the wind just hit and through in that pocket. But we didn't win the game. I got 6 minutes, and that whole 6 minutes we were attacking. So I got a couple of hands on the ball, got an offload. So I was pretty happy with it, where everything went in terms of my game. But through that tour, I stayed as a reserve, which was sweet. Played 3 minutes against Ireland, but didn't get on against Wales. But we had pretty much lost every game during that tour. It wasn't real fun in that regard.
Sorry, I just lost you for a second there. Sorry.
Lost you, bro.
Sorry about that. Just give me a sec. See if I can get this back up and working. So,
where was I up to?
I lost you not long after we said the debut at Twickenham. Twickenham.
Oh yeah, yep.
Sorry about that.
All good.
Should be all good now. Yeah. So it was just after we said you made your 23rd. You're being the 23rd man, and then you made your debut at Twickenham, and then it started freezing on us.
Yeah, so that experience was ridiculous, actually. Like making your debut at Twickenham, home of rugby. I got my 6 minutes. We were attacking the whole time, and yeah, so I got a couple of touches with the ball, an offload. So happy with what I gave to the team in that 6 minutes, and then afterwards to be presented my Wallaby cap in front of all the dignitaries in the club up the top. That was great, you know, making my speech. I made my debut with Dave Fitter. He was, so ended up being Wallaby 806, and he became 807. So yeah, it was an awesome experience. And I had family come across from Kiama, which was great. My wife came across. It was a great experience.
And then you move over to the Western Force, so brand new team. Is that a bit different? Like, because obviously Canberra Rugby, I know they started with this they had the Super Rugby in '96, but Canberra Rugby it's been around for 100 years, and as has Queensland Rugby. Western Force hasn't really had that. They're a brand new team in '06. What was that like going over to the Western Force, playing for a brand new team that didn't have that, 20 years of experience, and well, at that time, 10 years of experience in the Super Rugby, plus that 80, 90 years of history before that?
But they did have the history. So the Black Swan was always on the
Oh,
back
yeah,
of the
of
West
course.
Australian team. So and they were playing in it was kind of like a second tier Australian comp in which New South Wales country, Queensland country were playing
Okay.
against all the states. So from that, yes, there was a team, but I can understand where you're coming from, whereby ACT were playing against New South Wales and Queensland. 2 years before they came into Super Rugby. So these guys like Griggs and Larkham and Roffey were producing an ACT team that was actually, I think they beat the Waratahs the year before Super Rugby come in, right? So, and that was just from growing their homegrown juniors and them coming through. And what a special group to really get the ACT Brumbies to the point where, the likes of Owen Finnegan and coming down from New South Wales and Dave Giffen and Jeremy Paul from Queensland were able to build upon this squad and make it into a Super Rugby team from the outset. Whereas WA was all fresh. Like the guys that were involved in that WA team just didn't have the experience and would be likened to third grade place in a Sydney competition. So to build upon this group going forward really needed everyone to be signed from other states and to come across and build a team. The reason why I put my hand up, I guess I seen the culture and the drive from those guys that have been there from '96 at the Brumbies, and how they were there from the start, and they molded and they built and left a legacy, which was the ACT Brumbies from the start. So for me, one was to build that legacy and start something fresh, but have your input in that. Second was a leadership role. And for me, look, there was no way I was really going to look at being a leader in the Brumbies with the number of players they had in that group. From that viewpoint, it made sense to have that burning desire to be a leader. Let's go across to the Western Force. So end up signing with John Mitchell as the vice captain, and worked really hard during that first year to help everybody, I guess, achieve what we wanted to achieve, and is build a club with culture, with community, and with a playing style that we all loved and wanted to be a part of. And it made it hard at the start. There's no doubt about it. Like John Mitchell had his way of talking rugby, which in terms of terminology is like another language coming from New Zealand. So we all, like from Australian point of view, and only having Australian coaches going across to WA, it was we had a lot of guys sort of going, I don't understand where we're going, what we're doing, and whatever else, because understanding him, and there was another guy, Tommy Fern, who from New Zealand as well, they got their language and the way they wanted to play it. And so we had to get this balance between what they were saying and what we were doing. And that really didn't come till halfway through the year of Super Rugby. Even though we did an off season and we pushed hard for those first couple of weeks, I think that sort of clicking moment sort of came a couple of weeks before we played that Crusaders game where we drew, and it started to come, and that sort of brand of rugby that we wanted was there. But everything from the back office to sponsorship to, I remember Sharpie and I on our days off on Thursdays were just helping out different areas of the business, just to understand the professionalism that we'd wanted and needed from a support to the main team. So, in terms of marketing, when do we put player events on? How do we put that on? What do sponsors need from us? Is it too much? Is it not enough? How do we do our community rugby? What we need to really drum up support in WA. And look, no doubt about it, it wasn't difficult to drum up support because there's a lot of expats in WA, so they all jumped on board. You've got your South Africans have immigrated across, your New Zealanders, and your English, and they all came together and wore the jersey with pride, and they loved rugby through and through. So they were prime and they were ready for this competition to happen, and they were ready for Western Force to be a part of it. There was no doubt about that. I remember like times where I was sitting there at dinner with Sarah, my wife, and I'll just have random guys coming up, grabbing a seat and sitting down, just talking about the season, and that I never had that before. Like, not even living in Canberra with the Brumbies and winning a title and being a Wallaby and that kind of stuff. That didn't happen over there. But I'll get across to WA, and they just loved it so much that they were just like, we were the rock stars. It was like a fishbowl, and so it made it hard to generate community rugby, but also they wanted more. So every club wanted a piece of every player, and so we just had to manage all that, because we had to manage the load on our guys, and make sure that they were prime for playing each and every week. So even to that point as well, there was a lot of working in the back end, and talking to those people that were involved and those stakeholders. And I think, once again, that all clicked sort of round about halfway through that first year.
And that probably would have also, probably with the Western Force coming in, probably also helped the club rugby as well, wouldn't it? Because like you said, like, for example, my uncle married a South African, and she is just fanatical about it, right? It's all rugby, rugby, rugby. Like, 2011 World Cup, that was in they live in New Zealand. The 11 World Cup, she watched every single game, and he's a rugby nut as well. But he was like, every single game is like. So with that, did that help with the club rugby as well? Like lifting that, like, because a lot of the South African and English, like you said, in the New Zealand community, did they really get in behind the club rugby as well? Like, did that really push the club rugby up as well with the Force coming in?
Well, yeah, look, there's not immediately. I think there was a couple of occasions where Pet Cowan, or there was Pet Cowan and Luke Holmes both broke their legs in their first games for club rugby, because they were hit after the whistle or in a position they shouldn't have been hit. And it made it difficult for players to go back to club rugby, even though we're told to, and not go back to our Sydney or Queensland clubs to play that higher level of rugby, because we knew that the potential for injury was so high, because these guys were on a third grade level, and you put in Super Rugby players in with third graders. It's not going to be a pretty sight. One, because they're dominant, but two, these guys maybe wanted to make a name for themselves of the guy that hit a Super Rugby player or whatever else. So that sort of reverberated around the group. But I guess the foresight of those guys in WA to say, look, we've got to build our competition up to be the point of it generating WA grown players that will become Western Force players. And that was only going to happen over time. So it made it difficult for those two guys that were injured during that period. But I guess in hindsight, it was a really good decision to put those fringe 22, like those guys are not in the 22, into club rugby on those weeks, and build the competition. Because what it then made, or what was created from that, was more fringe players from around the country decided, you know what, I'll go to WA and play club rugby, because then I'm going to play with or against Super Rugby players, and that might put me on the radar for an academy position with Western Force, for any A games, or to play for Perth. And our Perth team was our second tier team, still playing in that Australian competition, right? So from putting in that work, the guys were able to start generating WA-born Western Force players. And whether it was from juniors, because there was more coaches that were coming on board as well, and able to coach the ranks, and the play, each of the clubs were starting to put a lot more energy into their club team, whether it's from a financial or from a resource point of view, to make them more of a semi-professional unit. And so that's made it great for WA rugby. And I think the first homegrown player through, that's going to test me. Kieran
Hodgson came through, didn't he? Wasn't he a
No, he played it.
product?
He was played with me at Eastwood.
Ah, right. Sorry, I thought he was a WA player.
So he's a Central Coast boy.
All right.
And then played Eastwood, and then went to Manly, and then went across to the Force. No, I think it was Kieran Longbottom.
Solid player to come through.
First one to come through, and then just kept on going from there. Like your likes of Dane Haylett-Petty, and yeah, there was many more that have come through.
Yeah, of course. So then you help grow the Force, and then you move over to you come to the Waratahs, and then unfortunately you do your back. If I did my research correctly, you did your back, if I believe that. So what happened there? What happened? What was it? What happened with your back?
Look, yeah, it was difficult. It was a difficult time. There's no doubt about it. I'll come across the Waratahs because my coach from Eastwood, Chris Hickey, ends up being the head coach. And I guess, look, for myself too, there was a bit of a hangover from the old Quokka Gate over there as well in WA. And so for me, I just felt like the timing was good in terms of, I come back home to New South Wales, and Sarah and I, we had our daughter Poppy, who was born in WA. She was 18 months old, and just for that help, and I guess building a family, to be closer to family, just made sense. So we made that trek back to New South Wales. And look, throughout my career, I've managed a back issue, whereby I've got a congenital shortening of the nerve canal between L5 and S1. And for me, I don't do too well when I do squats or big deadlifts or anything like that. So for me, a lot of my professional training was always single leg stuff, because I was able to isolate the lower weights and control that through movement, and become more powerful as a consequence of building up one leg as opposed to putting pressure on my back with so much load, using two legs for a squats and that kind of stuff. So with that management, Dr. Sharon Flahive was my doctor right through, helping me with that pain management. And sometimes my back would fall out, and would use an epidural cortisone to smooth it out, and to just reduce the inflammation around that congenital shortening. And so it just so happened that it was the second Waratahs game, and my left glute just fell out. And Sharon and I had been talking about this issues I'd had with my back, and just trying to work out when was a good time to go through the same process that's been working for 5-6 years, right? So we decided, look, I was on the bench, let's go and get this done. It was midweek, and it was Wednesday, I think. And then on the Thursday, I got the injection, and everything, it worked. So, and straight away when it does work, everything just flicks off, all the pain, all that kind of stuff, and you feel really good. I came into task training and went, look, we need to. I'll go and train with the guys, and went, no, go and see the physio. And then it was from there that I hurt myself in the physio room, and it was not the best way to sort of exit the game, I guess. I tried to rehab for the rest of the year because that was in February. It happened in 2009. I tried to rehab, but like I from the incident, I couldn't walk for 3 months properly. Like I properly started walking probably 3 months after the incident. I'm still numb in the left leg. I'm still loss of strength in the left leg,
Even now.
and yeah, even now it's built up, but at the time, like it was strength was at about 20%. The numbness was at about 80%, and it slowly over time the nerve is able to heal itself, but it only heals itself at a certain rate. And from that point of view, I knew that I wasn't going to play rugby again, because the rate of healing would take me into my 40s. So, yeah, I had to look at it from that viewpoint, and having a family, and I had twins due in September, October. And so I was basically going in with a family of 3 under 3. And I, decided, look, it's about time to start looking after the family and make the decision to retire.
Because which is unfortunate, because when I was researching what the questions to ask you, I was like, why didn't he ever go to Japan? And then when I looked up, I was like, oh, well, you were going to Japan or Europe, and then I was like, oh, that's why. And then because you actually had a contract to go to Japan, didn't you?
Look, it was thereabouts. Like I would have played the rest of that season and looked at transitioning across. I didn't have it, but that was the plan. So my management team were looking at the options available, to sort of settle down, buy a house in Sydney, and then make my way overseas, and get the I guess the retirement plan, as they called it, and make sure that I finished my career the way I wanted to, and with a couple of years overseas with the family. But wasn't to be. I had to move straight into life after rugby, which, look, is the pathway. It just happened earlier than I expected.
Yeah, of course. But thankfully you didn't leave rugby totally. You did transition into coaching. You also started your own business. So what was that like, transitioning from coaching transitioning into coaching from playing?
Look, I think it was a necessary thing for me at that time. I obviously knew the product. I wasn't going into a new industry. Look, I had some job offers in different industries. I just felt, with my twins that were born in October and me retiring in November, that I needed to put family first. And to do that, I just didn't need any stress on the family at all. For me, trying to work 12-hour days, 5 days a week with 3 kids under 3 in the house, and support was there, but wasn't like we didn't have mums living in the house or anything like that, So I basically made the choice. I said, look, I'll go into coaching because, one, I love rugby. I know what I'm doing. I'll be able to work with my team. Graham O'Donnell, who was my assistant coach, he was the head coach at the time. Sorry, first year 2010. But he guided me through, and he was a great help in trying to make sure that I was balancing out family life with coaching Norths. And like the first year, I was doing a bit of sponsorship stuff, a bit of marketing stuff on the side as well. So they got me in a full-time capacity. So it was a good learning curve to do things for a rugby club on the other side of the fence in the back office. So those, look, from an education point of view, I transitioned from electrical engineering into a sports science degree, which helped me a lot for my rugby career. But I then majored in business management because I knew I wanted to own my own business, and I wanted to roll sort of understanding that side of how business runs and that kind of thing. So for me, they were able to give me opportunities within the back office and as well as be the coach. And yeah, I just built myself around North, family wise, made some really good decisions for them. And one of them was to be, look, I didn't start till Feb 2010. So I had a good 4 months just getting structure for my family, which was really important, like getting the twins right in terms of feeding times, sleeping times, all that kind of thing. Putting in that work in was a benefit to helping Sarah and getting me started in terms of rugby. But yeah, look, it was tough because for me, going into that environment, Norths came second last the year before, and I was basically given a blank canvas to get them back to a strong club. So I worked hard. I wanted to work hard. I wanted to make them the best club in Sydney. And so, that comes with changing their training structures from Tuesday, Thursday night playing Saturday to we're doing Monday nights, we're doing skills, we're doing Wednesdays. Sometimes we're doing reviews. We're going to do a captain's run on a Friday if it's a really, tough opposition we've got coming up. So all those times that you put in play takes away from the family in those crucial times at night time where they need you in terms of that structure. But it was a tough transition, but the club were great. They were great when I needed some time just to help out with the guys at home and help me with being full-time employed and able to sort of do the thing I love still. So it was a great transition.
And with that, so you obviously were working with Knights. You came through the Eastwood system. With the Super Rugby starting over the weekend, do you think that potentially someone going through that system, like we were discussing earlier, where you went through Eastwood or Knights or whichever club the person may go through, do you think that is more beneficial for a player to go into Super Rugby, like go to Super Rugby, or do you think it just is case by case? Because like currently a lot of them are in academies and they don't go through, well, some do, but a lot of them go through the academies rather than Shoot Shield. Do you think that will be beneficial for Australian rugby to go through Shoot Shield?
Look, I think there's a lot of players that play probably too early in Super Rugby, and there's no doubt, like if you don't make the 22, you're going back to club rugby anyway. So they get the experience of playing club rugby right year round. But I guess it's changed a lot from back in the day where a lot of the teams were picked from a lot of the players were picked from club rugby, and then you got to join Super Rugby, and there was only like a handful of those super players that were able to transition straight from, say, Australian 21s or Australian schoolboys straight into a Super Rugby team. Like even David Pocock and James O'Connor coming across to us at the Force in to the end of 2006 into 2007 season. I just felt it was too early for both of them. But that's the way the Force had to compete to make sure that they got these players because they didn't have a strong club system and they needed to fight for the depth and get players in that they knew were quality. So they started signing straight from Australian schoolboys, straight into Super Rugby squads. And look, I think the difficulty is that we're still losing a lot of players to rugby league, players out of our Australian schoolboys teams that have the potential to go on and be Wallabies. For one reason or another, whether it's money, whether it's development, are choosing to be in the NRL squads as opposed to coming into Shoot Shield. And it's just because we don't have the money to pay these guys 50, 60, 70,000 development contracts for them to sit and play club rugby for a couple of years. right? So those kind of kids, you've got to rely on that they've got a strong rugby background that's going to make them choose rugby over NRL, and then from them, for that matter, apply their trade in Shoot Shield for a year or two to then enable themselves to get into Super Rugby. And it's just a system we've got at the moment. And that's the difficulty we find with the quality of player that we're losing through other systems. And no one yet has able to put their hand up and light bulb it and say, look, this could change it all. And this could give us an opportunity to get more depth in our ranks, which would then help Shoot Shield or, Hospital Cup, John Dent, the Western Force competitions, and the Melbourne competitions, because having them strong and vibrant with players that are ready to jump into Super Rugby is what we want for that depth for each of these Super Rugby teams.
Do you think that the TV deal with Stan Sport, Nine Entertainment, with that has all of the Shoot Shield and equivalent competitions around the nation, do you think them showing every game on Stan Sport rather than one game a week will be beneficial? Do you think that will bring more money to the game, so potentially you can keep more?
Look, I'm not sure about the commercial viability of it, and whether that the clubs see any of that coming through and filtering through to them. But I feel from a consumer point of view, and for my kids and the kids I talk to from Rocco, my son Rocco's team and that kind of thing, it's actually given more opportunities for the kids to see their mentors or their heroes in action. I remember for me, being in Parramatta, I'm watching, Andrew Leeds run around for Para, Peter Kay, those kind of guys when I was growing up, and going down and playing in front of them, and to be able to see them on TV at the same time was awesome. So for these group of kids coming through to be able to see Southern Districts playing week in, week out, and it's on TV, it's a great opportunity for them to see their heroes in action, give them that push to be ambitious and say, look, I can be there, I can play in that realm, I can play in that environment. And so, for a little while there, rugby was non-existent across the board in any form on TV, which was a shame. But they've worked really hard. Channel 7 had it for a little bit there. Now Channel 9 have got it, which is great. And so, yeah, if you can watch your team and get that tribalism going week in, week out, I think it's great for the game. Once again, I'm not privy to what the commercial terms are and how that filters down into each of the Shoot Shield teams and what they get out of it.
Okay. Do you think something like bringing back the NRC could work, or having a few teams join the New Zealand, I think they call it the NPC, what used to be called the ITM Cup? Do you think joining, doing something like that could also work, having like a in between grade and Super Rugby, or do you think just keep with the grade system?
Look, I think the NRC should be more about the clubs that make it. Like if you look at the top 4 clubs in New South Wales in the Shoot Shield, majority of the Super Rugby players are sitting in those 4 clubs. Now, not all of them, but the majority are. Now, if you did a competition where you keep the tribalism alive, and those top teams then go and play the top 2 or 3 teams in Queensland, the top team in ACT, maybe the top 2 in Melbourne, and the top team in WA, and sort of work out a 10-team competition that's run over 4 weeks, I think that's got more merit because that tribalism stays, and you'll get more people driving or flying and supporting because it's their club team, rather than making up a new team that's got no identity. because that sort of hasn't worked in the past. And to make those same mistakes again, it's good. I understand from the point of view that it gives these players an opportunity in a tier down. But I think we're still got to cater for the grassroots level, and that grassroots is these guys that are volunteers that are down at Rats training every week, and they put it in for their team because the team gives back to them, right? But if you put them into a raised team, that same volunteer is not going to put the same energy in or have the same identity to that club as they would. So for me, I know, like they always say, well, you're going to get Super Rugby players that miss out on playing in this second tier comp because they're not involved in their club teams. Now, I'm sure the administrators can find a way to work that out, or even put in a president's team that comes together, or Barbarians team, that those guys don't miss out. And that's the last team that sits in that competition, right? But I really would like to see that push forward, because I think the tribalism behind that, if you're behind an Eastwood team that makes it through to the top two, and then you're going into a Champions League from there, like everyone would jump on board and everyone would be going, look, are we the best club in the country? And then take that step further, and you're in there going playing a 4-team competition with the 2 best teams in New Zealand because they're doing something similar. It would be awesome.
Yeah, creates more incentive to play better, right?
Oh, indeed. But it gets the whole club behind it. It gets the whole machine that you got behind you going, mate, we're going to New Zealand to support Eastwood and playing against the best club in Canterbury, right? Or the best club in Otago, because they're now the champions of their league. And I guess that's what rugby league have got. They've got that tribalism between their clubs, and I guess they do it from the viewpoint of playing the best team in England, and they have that one-off game. But we could take it to the next level, and I think we've got to think more on those lines and how we get that club rugby into that position, rather than thinking about the same mistakes we've made with these NRCs over the last couple of iterations of those competitions.
Sure, I didn't even think about that. That's actually a really good solution to the problem that we've got. Oh, not a problem, but to increase the competition here. So now that you're also staying within the you're now coaching both. You're now coaching the women's team. Helping coach the Wallaroos, and working at F45 down in Canberra. So my first question, I'll just quickly go with the women's team before I go on to the F45. With the Wallaroos, Australia has a lot of quality female talent coming through, playing in the sevens. But it seems like a lot of those quality sevens are now going, with the expansion of the NRLW, are now moving across to the NRLW and not wanting to play, for whatever reason, play in the Super W. How can we keep those quality, and we're not losing all of them. A lot of them quality players are staying in the rugby union, but how can we get more of those top quality sevens players to stay and play in the 15 so we can compete with New Zealand and England in that female game?
Yeah, look, I can't really speak for the Aussie Sevens girls at the moment. They look like, I guess they're our flagship group at the moment because they've had success, and it's difficult to see where their heads at with how 15s rugby sits with them, if you know what I mean. Like they play sevens, and they play sevens from October through to May, and from there easily they could transition into 15s footy, but it's like the timing of competitions and how each of these competitions roll at that point in time. What I would like to see is the whole Australian team, wallaroos and sevens included, I guess, become properly professional. And for the game for wallaroos rugby to have a program that mimics the men, and if you can build that, then conversations become a lot easier when you're talking about defection to rugby league, because what do you want to go and play for St George in rugby league and you play 6 games against Balmain, Eels and Bulldogs and just stay around New South Wales? Or do you want to come and play for Super W with the Waratahs, play against the 5 super teams, travel interstate for that competition, and then if you get selected for the Wallaroos, you get to play a rugby championship and go on a spring tour to UK? And what sounds better straight away? You go, mate, do I go overseas? Yeah, bloody oath. You can go to Italy, you can go to UK, anywhere in the UK. We're going to play Canada, we're going to play US, we're going over there. It's like those conversations for them to travel, and then from secondly to travel to be identified and playing other competitions around the world, are much better conversations to have with these girls that are professional, looking to go to NRL. So that's what I'll be sort of like looking at. And for me, being in this role as Wallaroos assistant coach, I'm only new, so I would like to see that happen. In terms of asking the questions or whatever else, look, that's up to the administrators of the game to build that. It's up to World Rugby to identify that need for the competition from a girl's perspective to become more professional and more money to be put in the game to allow that to happen. So it's all, once again, it's all an idea. It's a conversation that's got to be had, but I think one that would definitely keep a lot more girls in Australian rugby.
How did you find playing sevens? Because you obviously played in the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne in 06. How did you find playing sevens?
Look, it's not the easiest of transition when you train for 15s, and I think it's a really good opportunity to play a sevens competition to supplement and get your skills right for a 15s, or the start of a 15s year. I found it both on when I played the 2002 Brisbane Sevens. It really helped my skills leading into playing for the Brumbies that year. Same with the transition into Commonwealth Games. It's just the skill level is just a different skill level. Being able to pass long balls, you don't really do that as a back rower, but you can. You do have that opportunity to. It's having that vision of the whole ground from a sevens point of view. It's your tackle technique, because you've got to make those tackles because you're so isolated. It's one-on-one in sevens, whereas in 15s, look, yes, 100% first tackle success is massive, but you can do it together, shoulder to shoulder. You've got the trust that you've got someone on your inside and your outside. And so a lot of it, you have to be very mobile. And I found that was the hardest transition because I was 15s fit. I wasn't sevens fit. And look, if you look at that 2006 team, we had Giddell, Latham, Shepherd. Who else did we have? Drew Mitchell? No, I don't think it was Drew. Someone from the Rebels that came up. So Takiri. So we had Lottie. And all of us got injured. All the Super Rugby 15s Wallabies all got injured. And it was funny how that happened. And whether it was just the conditioning that we weren't used to. We didn't train for sevens that much in terms of conditioning. We thought our 15s conditioning would allow us to get through. But it's funny, when you look at the end of the series, every one of those top-end players got injured, and it was only the real sevens guys that had been playing sevens competitions all year round was still going at the end in that bronze medal against Fiji.
Do you think that's why a lot of the girls do play like sevens is because it is televised more, and it has that, for example, like you played in the Commonwealth Games in the sevens. It's now also an Olympic. It's now an Olympic sport. Do you think that's why a lot of the girls would play sevens over the 15s because there's that more viewership, been in the com games for quite a while now an Olympic sport. Do you think that is that making it harder for them to transition into the 15s games because there's more television for the sevens game?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, it is. It's a part. It's a part of that equation. The biggest part I find, and I'm seeing it at the moment. My two girls are 14 and 12, and they both. One of them wanted to play rugby, and the first opportunity that she can get to play rugby is in a sevens comp. So there is no 15 aside at her age group. So the depth and that no opportunities from grassroots rugby point of view, from a 15s point of view, means that they only play sevens. And only, I guess, my daughter's team now, Baronier, so she played the first sevens comp of the year for Baronier under 15s on Saturday. They're trying to work out and build an under 16s team. And from there, Southern Districts are looking at having an under 16s rep team for 15s this year, which they think they're going to get. And so whereas the boys, when my son Rocco, he's in rugby, the first thing they play is 15s. And they basically don't even play sevens. Like sevens is like if they want a bit extra, they'll go and play sevens. But everything's set up for the 15s game going forward. So it's the roles are like they're reversed. So these girls grow up as sevens players, not as 15s players. They've got to transition across to being a 15s player if they want to. But the hard thing about that is that we don't get any specialization with positions at that age group. We have to rely on front rowers coming in from other sports and to integrate themselves into our 18s or club rugby backgrounds. I think from an older age, so they've got no training if they're a front rower from a junior all the way through to this 18s age group. They're just shoved straight in, and they've got to learn the dark arts of scrummaging from 18 years of age, which is very difficult in itself as well.
Yeah, of course.
So I think there's a real groundswell to change that, but it's coming from firstly Shoot Shield teams need to have a women's team next year, which is awesome. I think that's the best direction from Shoot Shield that's come about for years. Otherwise, they're out of the competition. So I know, because I'm seeing emails go through, that Southern Districts at the moment are hammering to try and get their coaches ready and to start getting together lists and squads and whatever else to build the first Southern Districts team. But on the flip side of that, they have the Reblettes, which is the sevens team for Southern Districts, they've been the most dominant sevens team in the last 2 to 3 years, maybe even longer. They've won competitions everywhere around Australia. So you would almost think that the Southern Districts team would be sweet because they've got these Reblettes that are going to transition into 15s. But I don't know if any of the girls actually want to play 15s. So it's because they're just set on that sevens career.
Do you think?
So,
oh yeah, sorry. Continue.
Well, it just answers your question in terms of if they see how quick and fast and how athletic you need to be from the sevens viewpoint, and they see that from a higher end when they see a successful team in terms of the Commonwealth Games squad, the World Cup squad. Yeah, sure, they're going to just pick sevens, but more education in terms of the role the Wallaroos could have to benefit them from a career point of view, and you can be a full-time player within being a Wallaroo. I think that is yet to be determined, or that process is yet to be given to these girls for their understanding. So there is a bit of a disconnect there. I think the disconnect also comes from the fact that the girls are only starting to become getting some more money out of for what they do and the amount of time and effort they put into 15s rugby. And hopefully that increases over the next couple of years with, more games on the calendar, more games on TV, and that money hopefully pouring through that funnel for women's rugby.
Do you think partnering with the universe, and I just speaking from experience here, because UTS has a part where I went to university, has a partnership with one of the clubs. I can't remember, at the top of my head, I can't remember which university it was. I think it's Jordan. I think they UTS has a partnership with them, and on the UTS orientation day, they signed up something like 15 or 20 girls to play in the sevens comp. Do you think that's a possibility where to maybe partner with the universities, with the different clubs, to get more players into both sevens and 15s, to like partner with that?
Oh, look, it works for Sydney Uni. I'm not sure about Uni of New South Wales and Randwick, where it sits with them. Like the two strongest Shoot Shield clubs are East and Sydney Uni at the moment. They've always said that. They always said, look, I remember in 2006, the administrators over there at Western Force were talking about the women's game and how the universities could generate the interest in the game and then provide momentum. So, but it hasn't really happened, has it? Like 14 years down the track, and then we still don't have that opportunity. I think somewhere along the line it was mooted probably 7 years ago that they were going to do a unis competition. And so they would generate it because they've got the fields, they've got the numbers, and I guess they've got the tribalism. But well, now I think it's left to the Shoot Shield clubs to do it. And I think with this new determination from the Shoot Shield rugby to say we need women's rugby, you need a 15s team, I think that's the right move in terms of energy. And then it's up to the individual clubs like Southern Districts to have that connection with University of Wollongong, not only for the women, but for the men, for everyone, for the whole club. So scholarships, opportunities for their juniors that are coming straight into uni, 18, 19, to play rugby at their uni, but also then play rugby for the Shoot Shield team if they're strong enough, if they've got skill level, whatever else works. So I think a lot of teams have moved to it. I know when I was at Norse, we built a relationship with Macquarie University, and that was our uni. I hope they've still got that. Randwick Uni, New South Wales, you've got Sydney Uni, and that the Western Sydney clubs are tuned into having a relationship with the university, because it works well. There's no doubt about it, because you bring in more players, more opportunities for fields, potential funding for scholarships, to give these guys something to fall back on by having a university degree, and it's not all about rugby. I think the best thing for these players coming through.
And are they looking at? Do you know if they're looking at expanding the Super W to also make it a bit like the Super Rugby Pacific, having a few New Zealand teams in that as well, and teams around the Pacific, or is it just looking at keeping within Australia for the time being?
Well, I hope next year they do that. I think it would be great for our girls to then be in a position where they're playing the next 5 weeks after Super W against New Zealand teams, and then from there find out who the Super Rugby champions are. That would then roll into the June winter series over here. So hopefully we get a couple of touring teams. But it would also give the girls so much momentum to see where they sit against our neighbours, just like the guys do. So I think I really hope that we can get to that, and we do get that extra funding to allow us to travel to New Zealand from a super club point of view, and see where we sit.
Yeah, because I think it will be commercially viable if they do that. I think with the growth of, because they pull the trigger on the NRLW and in the cricket the WBBL and that, so I reckon hopefully it'll work with the union
Yep.
as well. Female the Super W competition. But no, you're also working at F45 now as well.
So can I pause for a sec, bud?
Sure.
My phone's about to die. Just need a
No worries.
charger. Give me 1 sec. You right, just chuck me that way. Is that all right?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so you're also in charge of the F45 down in Canberra. How's that?
Look, F45 has been great. It helped me with that transition out of being from rugby. I knew I wanted to get into business, and I knew I wanted to look at owning my own business from the viewpoint whether it was in fitness or look at anything, to be honest. In 2013, my manager came across and said, "Look, there's these guys, they're rugby boys out at East, and they've got this concept called F45. Do you want to have a look at it?" And as soon as I was able to
I think I may have lost you, Scott. Unfortunately, we have lost Scotty, but his phone did unfortunately die, and he does have a meeting that he needs to get to. So, I will say on the recording, I really do appreciate Scott coming on the podcast. He gave a lot of insightful. I hope you got something out of this. Everyone listening, he is a great. You can hear he's a great guy. He's really knowledgeable and he's rugby. He's really smart. Um, I really do appreciate it, Scott. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Anytime that you want to come on, you're more than welcome. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And for all those listening out there, I hope you enjoyed the podcast as much as I did. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, until next time, thank you very much. See you next time.